All right, got a interesting little exercise for you here. They have labeled this elements of labor and variable overhead variances. So when we are in the budgeting process, we will budget for any number of things. In this particular scenario, our variable overhead rate that we're going to be applying is based upon direct labor hours, and they tell us that. So that's why we're limiting our view here to just a labor and variable overhead uh, variance, and not look at anything such as fixed overhead costs or materials if they were to apply, and so forth. So let's see what we've got here. It says Chelsea Fabricating applies variable overhead to products on the basis of standard direct labor hours. Okay, so that's why we're just looking at those two. Presented is selected information for last month when 10,000 units were produced. So this is for last month. So that means we would have the budgeted amounts or the standard costing amounts. Those would have been available to us before the month began. And then, because it was last month, we also have those actual costs that we can go over and compare. Okay. So the way they have this set up, don't you love these, is where we have they've given you pieces of information, and then you have to solve for the missing pieces, and you absolutely can. Um, so looks like we've got A through H here. And so again, anytime you see this type of exercise, if you're going to end up being an accountant at some point in the future, you will absolutely have real life situations where you are taking the information that you have to get to information that you do not have. So they have, let's see, A through H, and the first thing that they want us to solve for is actual direct labor. Now, this is one I don't think you would have too much trouble with because they have given you the actual hours right here of 6,600, and they have given you the actual rate, right? This is what they actually paid for those 6,600 hours. That gives us 249,480. Okay. All right then. So the next thing that they want us to solve for is the standard hours per unit. Okay. And so, what we're going to do there is we're going to say, okay, I have a flexible budget for my direct labor of $90,000. Okay. We can figure out that if we have a standard rate of $36, okay, and 10,000 units, well, if we were to take 10,000 units, all right, 10,000 units, and let's just assume for a moment that each unit took exactly 1 hour, and this is how I always solve these kinds of questions. I would take my units and I would multiply it by my standard labor cost, and that's 360,000. But notice we budgeted 90,000. So what that tells me is that it takes me a lot less than 1 hour to make one unit. So I'm going to keep this 360 in mind, but I'm going to plot as my numerator $90,000, and I'm going to divide by $360,000, and I'm going to come up with 0.25. So basically what we're saying here is that it's going to take us um, 15 minutes to make 1 unit, 1/4 or 25% of an hour. And notice that I just happened to see B and B, so it's going to be the same answer for both of those. Okay. All right. So let's see here now. The next thing that they want us to calculate is the labor rate um, and variable overhead spending variance. So we have to calculate this. It's not too bad. All we have to do really is we have to say, okay, um, so the labor rate portion is going to be requirement C, and then the variable overhead spending variance will actually be part G. So that's a little bit confusing. We just have to take the difference between the actual rate. Let me back up, put a decimal there. 37.80 minus the budgeted rate of $36, and that gives us $1.80. And then we merely multiply that by 6,600, and that gives us 11,880. And this is definitely our variance. Well, we paid more than we expected to pay, so that would undoubtedly make this an unfavorable variance. Okay. What about efficiency variance? Well, okay, let's think about this. We have 6,600 hours that we used, but what did we expect to do? Well, we said that we were going to make 10,000 units and that we anticipate we can make a unit in 15 minutes. So if that's true, we could just simply take this 10,000, multiply it by 0.25. This would be our standard hours. Now, we had to calculate that. They didn't give us that information, but we have everything we need. We have the units and then how much time it takes to make a unit. So this is what we expected to have happen, but that's not what happened, is it? It was 6,600. So we take the 6,600 that happened minus the 2,500 that we expected, and that gives us 4,100. And what we're going to multiply that by is the budgeted amount right here of $36. So this is going to produce a big, big number. This is also going to be a massively unfavorable variance. So let me kind of review what we just did there. When we calculate the efficiency variance, we are using the standard cost amount, and our standard cost amount for labor is $36. We anticipated 2,500 direct labor hours. Instead, we had 6,600. Now, keep in mind these questions are algorithmic, and so uh, sometimes the numbers don't make any sense. But in real life, if you budget for 2,500 direct labor hours and you all of a sudden need 6,600, we have some type of significant issue in either our budgeting process or in our actual operations. And I get, which came first, the chicken or the egg. So a really, really large variance there. And then if we're talking about our total, what we call flexible budget variance or total standard budget variance, we're just going to take these two numbers. Now, because they are both unfavorable, and only because they're both unfavorable, we can leave the 146 on the calculator and then just add 11,880 to it. And they're both in the same direction, so that would be an unfavorable variance. If one of these had been favorable and the other had been unfavorable, we would have to net those out. Okay, so if this had, let's just say hypothetically, this was a favorable variance here, then our answer would instead be something like 135,000 unfavorable. Okay, but we just had to add those together. So let's see here. Now that gets us through requirement E. So requirement F, they want to know the actual variable overhead. Well, we kind of have to work a little bit backwards here. We had budgeted for 60,000, and we had a $4,500 favorable variance. That means our actual cost for overhead was $4,500 less than what we budgeted. So we can actually kind of take that shortcut here and just subtract that out, and that would give us $55,500. Okay. And so now we're going to calculate our variable overhead, excuse me, spending variance. And we're actually going to do this the same way. What we're going, but it's going to produce uh, a very large number here. So what we would say in this particular case is that we are going to want to take everything is based upon labor, so we're going to do the exact same thing that we've already done. We expected 2,500 direct labor hours. We had 6,600. Okay. So we've got 4,100. And that 4,100 represents the gap between, again, expected of 2,500 and actual of 6,600. Okay. We're going to multiply that by this $24 here. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift gears here a little bit. This 98.4 is absolutely an unfavorable variance. Now, it's not quite as much, but look where I'm putting it. I'm putting it here in requirement H. And the reason that I'm doing that, I think because of how they have this set up for us. Notice that it was 147.6 over here for requirement D. But the reason that it's more there, hopefully we can understand, is because of the higher rate there, right? So we were using $36 over here, and then we were using just the 24 here. But notice that our total budget variance coming back here is 4,500 favorable. So we can actually, without doing any math whatsoever in this particular question, we can just simply add these two figures together here. That must be what it is, because what we're saying, we only have one unfavorable variance, but overall we have a $4,500 favorable variance. So I'm going to add 4,500 to that. So the actual formula for the variable overhead spending variance would be, in this case, 6,600 minus 2,500 is 4,100 times the $24 rate here, okay, and then plus 4,500. And so 102,900, and this is a favorable variance. And let me just kind of check my math here. 102.9 minus 98,400. Okay, it's 4,500. And then 60,000 minus that would be the 4,500. Okay. And then this rate here was carried over. So I think we're going to be all right. And let's see. We did not miss anything. So that's good. All right. Well, very good. So this video is starting to get a little bit long, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up. If you do have any questions, just feel free to reach out to me. All right.